Okay, members, we're now on Representative Hansen's bill, House File 1402. And I will move House File 1402 with a recommendation to be re-referred to the Committee on State and Local Government Finance and Policy. Welcome back to the committee. And I believe we're going to go right to your bill and the testifiers. I see that you have an A1 amendment. No?
I do not have an amendment.
I think those are ours, I think.
Oh, sorry. All right. The A1 amendment is coming later. Sorry about that.
Yes.
Please present your bill.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee members. Good morning. First, I want to start off about talking about this bill. Representative Bakeberg is my co-author, and so I would be remiss if I didn't just extend a thank you to him for co-signing this bill with me. And I really appreciate the conversations he and I have had about this and other things, so I hope he sees this at some point, but thanks again for that. This initiative has bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate, and it has in the years past as well. House File 1402 is a popular bill, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time than usual introducing it and proactively addressing some of the common conversations I've had over the last few weeks and to bring you all up to speed. I know your inboxes are full. Thank you for hearing all those messages. In short, this bill provides the option for municipalities to choose, again, this is not mandatory, to utilize statutory authority to provide a fair way to charge for new transportation infrastructure and infrastructure that's necessitated by growth and ensure that development pays for itself and is not foisted on the backs of cities' existing property tax base. While communities around the state are ready to welcome new development opportunities with open arms, they also need to be sure that there is infrastructure with adequate capacity to support that new development. Without this statutory fix in House File 1402, this additional demand requires that cities offset these costs by paying for them up front and passing these costs onto existing property owners in the community, or proclaiming the project is premature and not ready until the infrastructure can be funded by that existing tax base. Currently, these costs cannot be collected from the developers to support the actual costs of development, according to the Harsted v. Woodbury court decision, where the court found that there isn't a statutory authority for cities to charge fees for future infrastructure that is needed to support this growth. As a result, currently, growth does not pay for growth. And I don't know about you all, but the vast majority of modest homeowners in my community are not keen on the idea of higher taxes to subsidize infrastructure for new developments, including for homes that many of them will never be able to afford. Now, this may not be the case for all communities, so I want to again highlight that House File 1402 is optional and simply allows cities to turn to developers to help fund these costs and does not require any municipality to take part in this model. The opposition's comments that this bill will somehow restrict developers from building affordable housing has been the most interesting argument I've heard about this bill to date. Consider this. If passing this bill means that developers will not be able to afford to build affordable housing for first-time homebuyers and low-income renters, I would ask, what's been stopping them from doing that for the last 20 to 30 years? This bill has been before the legislature for nearly 20 years, and Mr. Chair, I know that you carried this bill way back then. So why is now the time to claim that this will be the catalyst to stop developers from being able and willing to meet the market demand for affordable homes for first-time homebuyers or low-income renters, when they haven't been meeting the market demand to date, despite cities deploying all the tools and resources at their disposal to incentivize development like this? I know that my generation has been calling for this. I know that this body has been calling for this. And if existing developers were willing or able to hear and respond to this call for more affordable housing, why are we seeing more advocacy for grant programs that support the rise of new, innovative, and community-centered developers who listen to communities and are inclined to meet that demand, since the current market is not? The current market has left a gap that is yet to be met. And I'm seeing more and more affordable housing developers fill this gap when we increase access to financial and social capital to get started. We all want development, but we also have to ensure that the growth brought on by development is supported by sufficient infrastructures that are needed. It's not lost on me that other market forces and the cost of land, materials, labor, and more have all played a role in the rising costs of homes. But none of that can fully explain why a clear market demand has gone unanswered in what is supposed to be an innovative free market society driven by supply and demand. The reality is that our economy is actually driven by a system of winners and losers, the haves and the have-nots, and the voices of people struggling in our economy continue to be left out. The voices of developers who are willing to respond to the calls for more affordable housing continue to be outspent and outlobbied. I am grateful to have the support behind me on this bill for House File 1402 from the League of Minnesota Cities, mayors, and city managers around the state on this bill. In closing, members, House File 1402 provides a mechanism for cities to ensure that growth pays for growth, and that new development will have the infrastructure needed to support it without relying on the existing tax base to pick up the tab. I trust community-led decision-making, and I know that there will be some cities that do not employ this model in an effort to attract developers who have the ability to actually provide affordable housing for first-time homebuyers and low-income renters. I trust our local leaders to work with their communities to do what's best for their citizens and taxpayers. And I hope you will join me in putting more tools in the toolbox of our local communities. And with that, I will turn it over to testifiers.
Thank you. And Representative Elkins, you're on the list first when we get to comments. Our first testifier is Jason Weddle, the city manager of the city of Prior Lake. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee, for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Jason Waddell, and I'm the city manager for the city of Prior Lake. Of note, my career includes working within a prominent for-profit national home builder for 6 years, and that experience is foundational to the testimony I share today. House File 1402 serves to close a hole in state statute that was exposed in the 2018 court decision. Minnesota statute currently grants cities the authority to collect impact fees on new home construction to address the incremental cost each home adds to infrastructure. Water main, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, park dedication fees are all enumerated in statute. Streets are the only item not specifically listed in statute. House File 1402 addresses this omission. House File 1402 is not a new fee or a new tax, as some in the housing industry might ask you to believe. Street impact fees had been used for decades until 2018. House File 1402 simply recognizes that each new home adds 10 vehicle trips per day to road networks. So for example, in Prior Lake, we have 2,200 acres of land yet to develop. That equates to 66,000 new trips per day that will be added to our street network, and that triggers upsizing of streets. We have to add turn lanes, we have to add signals. House File 1402 places those costs on these new homes versus subsidizing home builders by shifting those costs to our existing taxpayers. House File 1402 is a bipartisan bill, and Representative Hansen and Bakeberg recognize that cities need tools to facilitate growth. This is not an affordable housing issue. The average new home being constructed in Prior Lake sells for $700,000 today, and only $20,000 is collected by the city in fees. That's 3% of the cost of a new home. If we were to eliminate every single city fee we have, are we to believe that the home builders are now going to sell those houses for $680,000? Markets set pricing, and city fees are not an appreciable factor in housing affordability. Cities are committed stakeholders in delivering affordable housing in our communities, and House File 1402 removes a barrier to sustainable growth. The absence of a fee is not the absence of a cost. It's transferring that cost to someone else. Thank you for your time, and we humbly request you address the omission in statute by fully supporting House File 1402.
Thank you, Mr. Waddell. Next, we have Mayor Jim Hovland from Edina.
Morning, Mr. Chair.
Welcome, Mayor. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you. Committee members, Chair Hornstein, Vice Chair Tabke, Ranking Member Petersburg, thanks for this opportunity for all of us to be able to testify this morning. My name is Jim Hovland, and thank you for bringing forward this bill. very well stated this morning, I think. I'm the mayor of Edina, but I'm also the chair of the Municipal Legislative Commission, and I'm here testifying on behalf of that commission today, which is composed of 19 cities in the metropolitan region, ranging from Maple Grove to Prior Lake, Woodbury, all the way out to Minnetonka. So with respect to the MLC, many of our 19 MLC cities are growing rapidly. While this growth brings opportunities to our communities, it also creates challenges. Each new home brings added incremental costs to the 5 demand or impact areas of our city infrastructure. These 5 areas are freshwater, wastewater, stormwater, parks, and cars on our roads or our transportation infrastructure systems. Every new home adds 10 to 14 trips per day to our streets. At present, cities have statutory authority to levy impact fees on 4 of those 5 infrastructure areas, the lone exception being street impact fees. While many cities charge a street impact fee along with other impact fees for decades, while they did charge them for decades, the Minnesota Supreme Court found that absent clear statutory authority, cities could no longer levy the impact fee for streets. House File 1402 addresses this statutory deficiency, rightfully placing streets alongside water, wastewater, parks, and stormwater. House File 1402 further ensures that the incremental costs of growth will equitably be attached to each new home and not to be subsidized or left to existing taxpayers to pay for this impact on the overall transportation system. Absent House File 1402 passing into law, our 19 MLC cities will be in one of 3 untenable positions: declaring proposed developments premature or effectively disallowing otherwise beneficial development given the existing inefficiency of the existing roadway networks to safely handle increased trips by that growth, allow growth to continue adding burden caused to existing residents as road capacity degrades, or transfer this uncovered cost of growth to the backs of existing taxpayers in order to expand roadway capacity to levels necessary to accomplish new development. House File 1402 addresses the missing infrastructure piece we have for roads. As drafted by Representative Hansen, it fully aligns with provisions for parks, water, wastewater, and stormwater that are in statute today. In closing, as mentioned by Mr. Waddell, the absence of a fee does not equate to the absence of a cost. It is the transfer of a cost to another body, namely existing taxpayers. This is fundamentally unfair. Thank you for this opportunity to testify this morning.
Thank you, Mayor Hovland. Next, and I'll remind our testifiers here, we would like you to keep it to 2 minutes or less. We have some amendments and committee discussion to follow. Next, we have Roz Peterson. Oh, I'm sorry. Welcome to the committee. Welcome back to the Minnesota House of Representatives. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Hornstein and members. My name is Roz Peterson, and I'm the Public Policy Director for NAIOP, Minnesota. NAIOP is a national chapter of developers who do commercial properties as well as multifamily and industrial. We provide education, research, and best practices in commercial real estate. Our chapter is over 600 members strong, and on behalf of our members, I'd like to share our collective opposition to House File 1402. I will simply say we oppose this bill because of the burden it will place on new development in our state. There are already several ways cities can collect money in development agreements, making them pay for the existing street infrastructure in the development, et cetera. Developers are struggling with higher interest rates, time-consuming regulations, supply chain issues, the labor shortage, and higher material costs, making it nearly impossible to build. I attended a land development seminar yesterday, and every developer said we are headed to harder times. Minnesota is already an outlier with taxes and higher fees in comparison with other states. It is things like this bill that cause people to not want to invest in new developments projects in Minnesota, as it is a very risky business. You can lose everything. Our development costs, taxes, and fees on a per square foot basis are dramatically higher than compared to other regions where you are seeing significant growth. This bill would only add to that staggering data. And that may answer your question why we're not seeing, as much development. So for these reasons and more, I urge members to vote no on this proposal.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next, we have Mike Franklin. Mayor Jordan?
Thank you, Chair Hornstein and members. My name is Mike Franklin. I have the privilege of serving the residents of Jordan as their mayor and also testifying today on behalf of the Scott County Association for Leadership and Efficiency, or SCALE. And I also have the privilege of following Manager Waddell and Mayor Hovland. So you get the brief version of my testimony since you already heard some of the important elements of it. Scott County is among the fastest growing counties in the state, and Jordan is a rapidly growing city within Scott County. This is obviously a great trend for us, but growth brings incremental costs to city infrastructure, as you've heard. Each new home generates additional demand for city services, including parks, water, sewer, and of course, as you've heard, 10 vehicle trips per day to collector road infrastructure. The members of SCALE believe that it's critical that new development pay for itself. Documented fees for new street infrastructure ensures that this development is planned, connected with the source of the incurred costs, and that protects current residents and taxpayers. These are critical priorities for us. So the slightly repetitive part, but bears repeating, that we believe this bill simply closes a hole in statute that incorporates some of those other incurred costs, but glosses over one, which is namely roads. This bill addresses that omission in an important way because, as you've heard again, but it's important to reemphasize, the absence of this ability to collect a fee is not the absence of the cost. And in this case, it is a transfer to other payers, meaning property taxpayers. The cities and townships and Scott County Board of Commissioners have taken up this priority collectively, but also individually. And you have a letter in your packet that's actually signed by all 8 Scott County mayors, as well as the Scott County Board Chair, signifying our alignment on this issue. And I know there's many, many more beyond that, as you've heard. Thank you very much to Representative Hansen and to Representative Bakeberg for presenting this bipartisan legislation that ensures cities have the tools they need to size infrastructure to meet demand without artificially placing the cost of growth onto our existing taxpayers. Thank you very much. I'd be happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Thanks so much, Mayor Franklin. Next, we have Daniel Lightfoot from the League of Minnesota Cities. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Daniel Lightfoot with the League of Minnesota Cities. The League represents the collective interests of 837 cities across the state of Minnesota. I want to thank Representative Hansen first and foremost for authoring this bipartisan bill. And of course, I'd be remiss not to mention Vice Chair Tabke as well for his leadership on this bill in the past, a few sessions back. For decades, cities, as you've heard, have been funding infrastructure work and ensuring that they have adequate funds to do major street work to support new development, which in many cases on undeveloped land must be planned for years in advance to ensure sufficient infrastructure is available to support growth. And however, as you heard in 2018, the Harstead versus Woodbury Supreme Court case found that there wasn't existing or current statutory authority for cities to use impact fees to support future street improvements when approving residential development. And that, as you've heard, also removed an important tool for cities and forced cities to either turn to their existing tax base to absorb costs or forego new development entirely due to the lack of infrastructure needed for new growth. Thus, the legislature is currently in a unique position to fix this problem, and House File 1402 provides a clear way to fix, a clear fix allowing statutory cities the option to charge developers fees that cover the cost of infrastructure improvements needed. And just to talk a little bit about the bill language itself, the language before you, House File 1402, was developed after multiple stakeholder meetings between both proponents and opponents of the bill, and included generally 4 key principles that were agreed upon in general in those meetings. Number 1, development should pay for development, including for some public infrastructure outside the development that is connected in some fashion to the development. Two, any legislative solution should contemplate equity of fees, including the impact on what we call first in, last in development. So one developer in an undeveloped area is not paying for the full freight or cost of infrastructure to support the other developments. Three, that fees, and we acknowledge, are a part of the cost of housing. But I would note an important caveat to that was mentioned before. Just because fees are a part of the cost of housing, there is no direct relationship between lowering these fees and an equal and opposite lowering of the cost of housing. The latter, of course, is driven by the market. And then four, no stakeholder, including cities, are interested in impeding desired development. And there has to be an essential nexus to the fees imposed and the municipal purpose for the fee. This is a fee that is charged because of development and allowing growth to pay for growth.
Thank you, Mr. Lightfoot, very much
Thank
for
you,
your
Mr. Chair,
testimony. Next, we have Mayor Brad Wearsome from the city of Minnetonka. Welcome to the committee.
Good to be here. Thank you, Chair Hornstein, Vice Chair Tabke, and members for having me today. I'm Brad Wearsome, Mayor of the City of Minnetonka. I also want to thank Representative Hansen for authoring this important bill for growing cities like Minnetonka. Like many cities in the metro area, Minnetonka is a growing city that is in a hot housing market. While that growth is welcomed, the city has to ensure that the infrastructure is in place to support our growth. Infrastructure is needed because of incoming development, but in some cases, the city is unsure how to proceed in light of the recent Harstead court decision. In two of the fastest growing areas of Minnetonka, new development has necessitated significant and costly changes to city roadways and to connections between city streets and collector streets. Without this legislation, Minnetonka and other growing cities will be left with difficult and unpalatable options. One, they can increase the property taxes on existing taxpayers to fund the infrastructure necessary due to new development. Or they can choose to disallow needed development because of the inadequacies of existing infrastructure. This is termed deeming development premature and is not where a growing city wants to be. Said another way, a city that wants to accommodate growth but is stuck between a rock and a hard place. If cities are unable to pay for streets that are needed due to development, they will stop growing. This is counter to the legislature's stated goals, and it exacerbates the already critical housing shortage that exists in Minnesota rather. And so I just urge you to support House File 1402, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Thanks so much, Mayor. Next, we have Matt Spellman from the Realtors. Welcome to the Transportation Committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Matt Spellman. I'm the Director of Governmental Affairs for the Minnesota Realtors Association. Minnesota Realtors is a statewide business trade association with a membership of over 22,000 real estate professionals working with buyers and sellers of all types of property throughout every district in the state. Thank you for the opportunity to share our concerns with House File 1402. Minnesota is experiencing a chronic housing supply shortage, particularly at price points that are broadly affordable to more Minnesotans. Minnesota's supply problem has been and continues to put significant upward pressure on home prices. I want to highlight a few key metrics for the committee as you consider this legislation today. According to our February 2023 housing market report, Minnesota only has 1.3 months supply of inventory, and that's statewide. To put that into context, 4 to 6 months supply of inventory is necessary for the market to be considered well-balanced between buyers and sellers. We aren't even close to the low end of a balanced market. Last month, the median sales price of a home statewide was $315,000. If we look back only 8 years in 2015, the statewide median sales price was $176,000. That is a $139,000 jump in only 8 years. Last week, Minnesota Realtors testified in Housing Committee on Representative Elkins' House File 2235, also known as the Legalizing Affordable Housing Act. House File 2235 is a comprehensive bill addressing various provisions related to local land use, building permits, building codes, and impact fees like those defined in House File 1402. While we understand there are infrastructure needs associated with building new housing, continuing to add to the cost of new development through impact fees runs counter to making housing more affordable in Minnesota. These impact fees will be passed on to the home buyer and incorporated into the mortgage, forcing the owner to pay thousands of dollars in interest over the life of the home loan. Minnesota needs more housing of all types that is broadly affordable to more Minnesotans to meet current and future demand. Impact fees on new development will simply add to the cost of housing, making housing less affordable to Minnesotans. Thank you for the opportunity to share our concerns with House File 1402.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, we have Joseph Jablonski. Please state your name for the record. Welcome to the Transportation Committee.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. And it's an honor to be here today before you. My name is Joe Jablonski. I'm the Director of Land Development for Lennar Corporation. Working for Lennar over the last 20-plus years, I've had the privilege to work in many municipalities throughout the metro area. In doing so, to create neighborhoods where thousands of Minnesotans proudly now call home. I'm here today to speak in opposition of the new proposed street impact fee bill. A street impact fee adds to the cost of home ownership, specifically for new construction. An impact fee such as this places undue burden on new construction, requiring new homeowners to pay for infrastructure upgrades that will benefit an entire city and existing homeowners as a whole. As an example, a new developing subdivision with 100 new residents could be asked to fully fund an intersection improvement that has been deemed failing in its current state, applying new fees such as these to fix problems that already exist. That is what this fee allows for. City area charges for sewer, water, storm sewer, and park dedication fees that have been mentioned in previous testimony generally increase by 10% year over year. Coupled with rising costs for materials, labor, housing affordability, and new construction, climbs dramatically to the price where it outpaces the affordable aspects for people to reach. The second part of this bill that is of particular concern to the housing industry provides municipalities the opportunity by ordinance to reject a subdivision based on inadequate road infrastructure within a city. As a developer, this is a particular concerning statement that gives the city the ability to deny subdivisions for a road or traffic issue that may be in an unrelated part of the city. There is already enough land use and zoning code regulation. Municipalities do not need more opportunity to prevent landowners from developing their properties. There are better ways to fund street
Mr.
improvements.
Jablonski, we've had a lot of testimony from the proponents. I'll give you just a few more, another half minute, because we want to get some parity with the opponents. But if you could wrap it up in
Yes,
a half
please.
minute or so,
Thank you.
that would be great.
There are better ways to fund street improvements. The collaborative approach used by the cities of Maple Grove and Inver Grove Heights, for example, have proven that there are successful ways to fund road improvements within a city. At a time when fees and development costs are already at an all-time high, adding an additional tax such as this is just the wrong approach. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
The last testifier who was signed up ahead of time is Nick Erickson from Housing First. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Nick Erickson. I'm the Senior Director of Housing Policy for Housing First Minnesota. We're a statewide trade organization who build the communities and places that we all call home. Our organization's mission is homeownership opportunities for all, and that's what brings me here today, because this bill really places homeownership at threat. And as state legislators across the nation are lifting roadblocks to housing affordability and access, including the lifting of the impact fee that this bill creates, we would stand apart and be the one state adding to its housing cost problem. Now, you've heard a lot of statements about the Harstead v. Woodbury case. Just a clarification for the record. These fees have never been authorized under state law. This has been alluded to several times. There's been a 20-year legislative fight to create this housing tax. This has never been authorized. Any past collection would have been done so in violation of state law, which was actually on the record in the Harstead v. Woodbury case, when the city was told in order to continue collecting this fee, state law would have to be changed. Now, I have studied the past illegal use of this housing tax, because that's what this is. It is a tax on housing. And when asked, asking cities to show a specific property and where these individual road improvements were paid, or where, can you trace the money from a home buyer who paid this tax? Because it's not developers who pay this tax, it's home buyers, and they're paying it at 15-year high mortgage rates. And we asked them, can you show us where this housing tax was paid? And they could not point to a specific land or specific lot, specific home, and what street improvement projects were paid. And that raises significant questions about fairness and access. Now, these plenty of options exist for cities. There's street special assessments, property tax payments, TIF, special service districts. I could go on. The important thing about all of these is not a single one of these includes mortgage payments. These are tacked on to a property tax bill or another method. None of these are paying 7% interest for 30 years on a housing tax. And that really is important, because just last week I spoke to the Minneapolis Star Tribune. Now, if you saw this on Sunday, Minneapolis Star Tribune talked about the need of and the lack of new starter homes and existing starter homes in the market. Interestingly, Minnesota stands apart. We have a median new home price of $523,000, nearly $100,000 more than our neighboring states, including Illinois. Here in the Twin Cities, and Mr. Jablonski's company is operating in many of these states, we have less than 2% of our new housing available at the sub $300,000 price point. Yet in communities like Indianapolis, Chicago, where Lennar and many other
Mr.
of
Erickson,
our members.
again, I'll give you a little leeway
Okay.
here, but we need to move on.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you, they allow these homes to be built. Where allowed, new starter homes are built. Just as you're considering creating this housing tax, because again, that's what this is, you are making our housing problems worse and stand apart from every other progressive legislature in the country who is instead lifting these roadblocks to housing affordability and access. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your testimony. Members, if there's any quick comments or questions related to the testimony, and then we'll dive into our amendments. Okay, all right. You did want to talk. Okay, Representative Elkins.
Yeah, but this, Mr. Chair, to make more comments or
Okay.
reaction to the testimony
Please,
than
proceed.
questions, per
Yes.
se. So, first of all, I would like to thank Representative Hansen for bringing this bill forward. As she knows, I've been working in this battle for a number of years as well. I want you to know that while we were sitting here, I signed on to your bill. So, I have to say that I found the testimony of Mr. Waddell and the two mayors compelling. I have been studying this problem for a long time, and my basic assessment of the problem is that developers talk about the three L's being the main factors of the cost of housing: land, labor, and lumber. And to that, I would add a fourth L, which is law, which is the regulations that we and cities promulgate. Mm-hmm. And that makes this problem complicated. There are lots of dimensions to it. In my opinion, the most important of those is the supply of land. Prices for housing are not determined by cost. They're determined entirely by supply and demand. And right now, we have a severe restriction of supply. And the main point of leverage in the supply is zoning and local regulations. And as we heard from Mr. Waddell and the mayors, when cities are not given a tool to finance the cost of the infrastructure needed to support housing development paying its own way, they have a number of means at their disposal to block the development of land just by not making it available. They discussed one this morning, declaring development premature. They can also formally declare building moratoria. They can force the developers to only develop under the very expensive and complicated planned unit development process, which is expensive to go through and adds risk to the process. So cities have an almost unlimited array of tools to prevent development that does not pay its own way. So in my opinion, and one of the testifiers, Mr. Spellman, alluded to my Legalizing Affordable Housing Act, I think that the biggest single leverage is give cities a tool that allows them to get development to pay its own way as an incentive to open up more land for development. And so I included a provision like this in my housing bill. I strongly support passing this one way or another because I think that passing this is a key, eliminates a key block to the development of additional housing.
Thank you, Representative Elkins. Anyone else? We should get into these amendments here, and our first one is A1 with Representative Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move the A1 amendment.
A1 amendment is moved.
Perfect. So this amendment makes absolute sense in my mind due to the fact that the reasons that everyone has testified for this is that they can utilize it to help the development that they're assessing that fee onto, even though there are already numerous tools in the toolbox, as we like to say, with cities as to how they can develop their own communities. This would require that municipalities that utilize this tool will be able to use that fund within 5 years to pay for the streets that they're apparently taxing the community for. So you build a house, great. You tax them for that building of that house, great, and then you use it to pay for the road that you're building. It makes perfect sense. 5 years is what they'll have in order to pay for that road, which if you have a house without a road built already and it takes your community 5 years to build the road and the house is all by itself, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So 5 years and then give it back if you don't utilize it for that exact project.
Thanks, Representative Olson. Representative Hanson, do you have a response or recommendation to the committee on this amendment?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the intent of the amendment. In my discussions with our stakeholders, this is not supported. 5 years is a non-starter. Cities don't control the pace of development, and so I would ask for a no vote.
Last word, Representative Olson or others. Committee discussion. Representative Olson.
Well, I think that that's pretty interesting that you're going to assess the fee 5 years before their housing development or their real estate development begins. I think that's pretty poor planning on the part of the community. I would ask for a yes vote and a roll call on this.
Roll call is requested and granted. Is there any further discussion? The author is recommending a no vote. Any further discussion? Okay, I saw Representative Petersburg in position with his mic, but maybe that's just a vote. Okay, the clerk will take the roll.
Hornstein.
No.
Hornstein, no. Tabke.
No.
Tabke, no. Petersburg.
Aye.
Petersburg, aye. Brand.
No.
Brand, no. Elkins.
No.
Elkins, no. Fogelman.
Yes.
Fogelman, yes. Hudella.
Yes.
Hudella, yes. Kegel.
No.
Kegel, no. Kraft. No. Kraft, no. Murphy.
Yes.
Murphy, yes. Nelson.
No.
Nelson, no. Norris.
No.
Norris, no. Olson.
Yes.
Olson, yes. Sensor Mira.
No.
Sensor Mira, no. West.
Aye.
West, aye. And Mr. Chair, we have 6 ayes and 9 nays.
There being 6 ayes and 9 nays, the motion does not prevail. The next amendment is A2, also Representative Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move that one as well, and then I'll just go straight into talking about it to save some time. So this one changes just the number 5 to the number 10 years. If you cannot pay for your street in 10 years or the development has not happened in 10 years, why in the world would this be anything other than a money grab? If the city is trying to grab money from people who are trying to develop and build affordable houses, and this is conversations we've had every single day here in the state capitol, I think that if you cannot utilize the money that you've grabbed from developers, from the house buyer in 10 years, I think you are making a huge mistake and you are inappropriate utilizing funds. So let's make it 10 years now, because you said that maybe the development didn't happen after 5. Well, if it didn't happen after 10, I wonder if it's even gonna happen. I would like a roll call on this one too.
Thank you. The roll call will be granted. We have a couple members that want to speak to this amendment. First, Representative Petersburg, then Representative Tabke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this one I will talk about because I think 10 years is enough. Down in our area, most contractors that are developing a property also build the streets. Okay, because you can't get to the house without the streets ahead of time. And infrastructure and stuff underneath it as well. That's usually the first thing that goes in is a street development based upon that. And so now you're asking, not only are they gonna build a street, now you want them to assess the hook in and connection to it. It just makes sense that if the city doesn't need it for that, it shouldn't have to, shouldn't be able to keep the excess as well.
Thank you, Representative Petersburg. Representative Tabke will actually be speaking after the amendment. So, Representative Hanson, do you have a comment or advice for the committee?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you again for the intent. Again, in our communication with stakeholders, 10 years is closer to a reasonable negotiation. I wish you had reached out sooner, so we could have really worked on the language. But the language here really isn't ready for prime time, and so for that reason, I would ask for a no vote.
Thank you. The author requests a no vote. Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's interesting that this has been going on for 20 years, this bill, and I would still state that the entire bill in itself is not ready for prime time. It's actually quite terrible in all reality. I think that 10 years is more than enough to develop a road. If you can't build a road in 10 years, if you can't build a building in 10 years, what are we doing? Building a castle? Are we building the Taj Mahal here? And anyways, the Taj Mahal would have a pretty huge tax base if it was privately owned, which would then maybe pay for that road. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Spoken like a true social studies teacher. Thank you. He knows about the Taj Mahal. Okay, members, we have a roll call, and the clerk will take the roll.
Hornstein.
No.
Hornstein, no. Tabke.
No.
Tabke, no. Petersburg.
Aye.
Petersburg, aye. Brand.
No.
Brand, no. Elkins.
No.
Elkins, no. Fogelman.
Yes.
Fogelman, yes. Udella.
Yes.
Udella, yes. Cagle.
No.
Cagle, no. Kraft.
No.
Kraft, no. Murphy.
Yes.
Murphy, yes. Nelson.
No.
Nelson, no. Norris.
No.
Norris, no. Olson.
Yes.
Olson, yes. Censor Miro.
No.
Censor Miro, no. West.
Aye.
West, aye. Mr. Chair, we have 6 ayes and 9 nays.
There being 6 ayes and 9 nays, the motion does not prevail. The A3 is our next amendment. Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and as long as we're doing roll call, let's do the roll call on this one.
All
too,
right,
as
the
well.
roll call is granted.
You're getting good at these. So we heard a lot about the Met Council and transparency and other things yesterday and so forth. This basically is just a transparency amendment that says within 30 days of the imposition of this, that the community is notified about it, because it does more than just talk about the imposition of the fee and the applicant. It also talks about the number of units and so forth, which I think is very important for the community to know who may not have followed along. So I'm asking for a yes vote on this one.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Okay, Representative Tabke.
Thank you, Chair Hornstein and Representative Petersburg. So I think this should actually be the other way around. So what this bill does is it keeps development fees from going on existing property taxes. That's what it does. This is a way to keep property taxes lower for communities. And so the way this should work is if developers were needing to do something, that has to get paid by somebody. And so it has to get paid by someone somewhere along the line. And the way it is right now is it goes to property taxes. And so this is a property tax on and new developments, in my opinion, should pay for themselves. And so the way your amendment is structured is that if someone is forcing, a new development is forcing more infrastructure to be created, then from there, that's what should be notified to the public, because that is going to be a direct property tax increase on the public, not this bill. We should be notifying the public on this bill, if it were to pass, that this is putting the development fees on the development, not on the existing property tax members. So that's
existing property taxpayer. So I don't support your amendment as it is, but I'd absolutely, if this doesn't make it all the way through, that we should absolutely be alerting property taxpayers that development is forcing more property taxes on those folks.
I'm gonna go to Representative Petersburg, and then we'll get some advice from Representative Hanson, and then we'll vote. Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Representative Tapke, for opening up that door, because I was gonna wait for my final discussions on the bill to bring that up. And because you talk about property taxes, and this fee is in lieu of additional property taxes for that property. And so it's important for the community around them to know what the cost is for the infrastructure. And one of the things that the mayors have all talked about, and I don't begrudge them, if I was them, I would look for every opportunity to increase my revenue source as well. One of the things that nobody talked about was the fact that these developments also increase the financial base for the property tax collections. Meaning that when that goes up and the houses are sold, that automatically has an increased value and increased revenue source for the city to use for normally what most people would expect is the cost of the infrastructure. And so you're asking not only the providers of the development to pay for the fees for maintenance. In some cases, they're already putting in the cost of the infrastructure. And then you're saying, but you also gotta pay for the fees for that, in which most people figure that the property taxes are used for the infrastructure needs. If we were to have an existing house needing infrastructure maintenance in front of them, they would have expected that their property taxes would have paid for that. That is the same thing here. If there's infrastructure needs, development connections, that's part of the cost of the city providing the business and an opportunity for us to implement revenue sources for them. If the city isn't collecting enough tax base in order to cover all the infrastructure, I would say shame on them, but, because that's their opportunity to do so. But to say that we were gonna create a situation where new development comes in, increases the tax base for that particular city, and then we're gonna tack on the cost of the individual that is building that to pay not only for that infrastructure, some of the infrastructure cost, but also the connection fee, that's a boon for the city. And it's not really paying for the cost of it. And so this is certainly appropriate for the community to know what that is all happening and what the costs are. That's what this amendment does.
Thank you. I think you gave your summation, but I will defer to the author for any advice and counsel here.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this. I'm gonna ask for a no vote, and I will tell you why. First of all, this is pretty uncommon to happen, so I think there's not a lot of precedence for this, and that's one piece. Two, it's not widely supported by the stakeholders. Three, newspapers and city websites are not a sufficient way, at least for my generation, to be notified about something. We're not reading the newspaper, we are not looking at the city website on a regular basis. Whether we should or not is a different discussion for a different day. Maybe if you put it on Twitter or something, or on Facebook, more people would see it, but I don't think that these primary ways would get to us. And also, I don't see any request for it to go out in the mail, which I think would maybe be a place to meet in the middle. But in any event, this is not common, and it's not a real effective way to communicate with residents. I also want to mirror what Vice Chair Tabke said, is that I would agree that if we don't put in this place, I do think that we should notify property owners of how much their property taxes are going up as a result of the developers. So I would ask for a no vote.
Thank you. We have a roll call, correct, Representative Petersburg? And the author is recommending a no vote. The clerk will take the roll.
Hornstein.
No.
Hornstein, no. Tabke.
No.
Tabke, no. Petersburg.
Aye.
Petersburg, aye. Brand.
No.
Brand, no. Elkins.
No.
Elkins, no. Fogelman.
Yes.
Fogelman, yes. Hudella.
Yes.
Hudella, yes. Cagle.
No.
Cagle, no. Kraft.
No.
Kraft, no. Murphy.
Yes.
Murphy, yes. Nelson.
No.
Nelson, no. Norris.
No.
Norris, no. Olson.
Yes.
Olson, yes. Censor Mira.
No.
Censor Mira, no. West.
Aye.
West, aye. And Mr. Chair, we have 6 ayes and 9 nays.
There being 6 ayes and 9 nays, the motion does not prevail. Our final amendment belongs to Representative Hudella, the A4.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the A4.
A4 is before us.
Thank you. Members, just a few short minutes ago with our last bill, we closed with no taxation without representation, and really commend the chair for that. Huge fan, so keep that in the back of your head. This new fee, you can call it an imposing or a impact fee or whatever you want. It's a tax, and it's a brand new tax that's being given directly to our developers, who are 100% going to then pass that on to the homeowners or the tenants at a time when we're trying to create more affordable housing. What my amendment does is, well, I'll back up for just 1 second. Cities love this bill because it allows them to directly place this tax without representation or a vote from the people. They already have tools that they can accomplish the same things, such as a local operating sales tax. And I carried a bill this year for the city of Cottage Grove so that they can put that out to the voters in their communities. What my amendment says is, when we hit the higher dollar marks with this bill, when we hit $1 million, the city needs to do just that and allow for representation for this new tax. So I would encourage a yes vote, and I would ask for the final roll call.
Okay,
Mr.
we
Chair.
have a last roll call, very quickly, a response, Representative Hanson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. Thank you for the intent of this. I get where you're trying to go with this. I understand that communication with constituencies and citizens is important. But I just want to, again, highlight that this is not a tax, and I think we need to be responsible in talking about that. Also, city councils and mayors are elected, and we also, as legislators, as a government at the state level, we have a responsibility to encourage and support our constituents to be active in their civic engagement. Citizens should always engage their lowest level and closest layer of government and ask these very questions. They should ask their mayors, how are you going to do this? How are you going to talk about this? This is how we keep our government responsible to the people. This is how we exercise what I call the politics of care, and that we incorporate the voices of our communities. I have concerns about the cost of another election and what does it cost to put this in there, because I don't see anything covering that. I see that there's like some appropriations and things in here, but I do appreciate the mail option, I will say that. And I don't love that this would potentially delay developments that they're trying to get there. So again, you know, I do wish folks would bring some of this stuff sooner, because I could have gone over this with stakeholders and had some different answers from them for you. But as it stands, at the brief glance we had in the last day or so to look at this, this is not widely supported by the stakeholders, so I'm gonna have to ask for a no vote.
Representative Vidal, any last word here?
Just quick closing, we heard about 5 and 10 year windows for development, so I don't think saying, well, this will be delayed as dropping into the next election or special elections realistic. But again, members, a yes vote is a vote for no taxation without representation, and I ask for a yes vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The clerk will take the roll.
Hornstein.
No.
Hornstein, no. Tabke.
No.
Tabke, no. Petersburg.
Yes.
Petersburg, yes. Brand.
No.
Brand, no. Elkins.
No.
Elkins, no. Fogelman.
Yes.
Fogelman, yes. Hudella.
Yes.
Hudella, yes. Kegel.
No.
Kegel, no. Kraft.
No.
Kraft, no. Murphy.
Yes.
Murphy, yes. Nelson.
No.
Nelson, no. Norris.
No.
Norris, no. Olson.
Yes.
Olson, yes. Sensor-Miro.
No.
Sensor-Miro, no. West.
Aye.
West, aye. And Mr. Chair, we have 6 ayes and 9 nays.
Thank you, members. Before we proceed to a vote, I will ask Representative Olson wanted to make a comment. We'll go to the author and then we'll, and Representative Petersburg will make a quick comment. What's that? Oh, the amendments, sorry, the amendment does not prevail. Now, Representative Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an interesting concept, an interesting bill, and it's been around for 20 years, as we said. Now, we had the testifier, the author of the bill, commented that this was a really popular bill. Well, it may in fact be popular if you include the fact that this bill has never once been carried or chief authored by the same person every single time in the last 20 years, which is really kind of a red flag in my mind as to why in the world we have this really popular bill that someone is putting forward and then realizing that it may in fact not be such a good idea. You know, there are so many tools in the toolbox of cities. I used to be the mayor of a small city, and I know those tools. You can assess streets, you can even, what we would do is if someone was interested in coming to our community to build something or to install a business, we would incentivize it. We gave one individual, they got 3 years without paying any taxes because they were bringing a business into our town. So, you know, if this goes through and the intent of it happens in these communities that are saying, oh, we just have to make these fees and pass it on to the homeowners, I would absolutely invite the developers to come to my neck of the woods. We'll actually help you build your buildings and help you develop because we want you there. When you're talking about building a development, I looked up Walmart here in Ramsey County. There's a Walmart that's paying $340,000 a year in taxes to their community. If you cannot pay for the road or the investment with the $340,000 a year that you are receiving from that business, you are doing something wrong, and you are just trying to grab the money from the people who are trying to live and work and thrive in your community. You talk about a tool in the toolbox, you know, this might be a tool, but this might be a rotten apple in your toolbox, and that will hurt every aspect of your toolbox.
Okay, we are going to take two very quick comments and vote. Representative Petersburg and Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask for a roll call on this, on the final
Roll call is
passage.
requested and granted.
And then I would say, I gave you my spiel before, but I'll leave you with this question. The author said that my amendment was very uncommon, and we don't generally do that. Exact same truth can be said about this bill. It is uncommon, and we've never done it before. Thank you.
Thank you, and Representative Murphy, and then we'll go to the author.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just think the communities that I represent would see this as an anti-housing bill. I mean, when you're looking at trying to track growth, like Representative Olson talked about, there's lots of incentives always for new development, new businesses. And your home equity goes up when your community grows. And those are all benefits to you. The people that live in a community for a while, in a growing community, they get the benefit of being able to move from house to house or move into the country nearby because their home equity has gone up. So I just see that communities are gonna look at this as an anti-housing bill.
Thank you. And Representative Hansen, if you have a few seconds, and then we'll go to a vote.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. I just want to make a few, like, 1 or 2 sentence comments on what was just said. So yes, this bill's been around for 20 years. Yes, there's different lead authors, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Mentorship, shared leadership, different approaches, empowerment, teamwork. I could go on, but there's good reasons for it, and I don't think it should be a red flag. I think it should be indicative of our party's ability to work together on things and to spread the workload to do what's good for Minnesotans. So I want to double down on that. I also want to comment that Walmart is also one of the largest recipients of SNAP benefits in this country. So their business model actually costs taxpayers more money. And so low wages have an impact that we really don't incorporate into maybe the Transportation Committee. I'd invite you to come to the Human Services Committee to hear about how much we spend to subsidize some of those things.
Thank you, Representative
I will
Hansen.
also say that it's common for us to charge infrastructure charges for other things like sewage, and so there's that. So then can I go to my closing comments now, Chair?
Representative Hansen, we really are over time. We need to vote. If you can just keep it to a minute or less.
Yep, I can do that. I'll talk very fast today. So as I talked to my constituents last summer and last fall, and as I saw in every mail piece that went to my neighbors' mailboxes and clogged their YouTube consumption, I heard loud and clear that people in my community, especially in my age group, as well as seniors on fixed incomes, are largely struggling to make ends meet. They clearly called on and supported me with the hopes that I and our body would do our part to reduce the cost of out-of-control things on their checkbooks. And I think it's fair to say that this sentiment was heard statewide. We have nearly 53% of people in this country making between $50,000 and $100,000 a year saying that they live paycheck to paycheck. So nearly every little bit that we put onto property taxes backs matters. And so they did not ask me to raise their property taxes. They did not ask me to try to offset that while they were trying to raise a family, pay off student loans, and do so much more. The costs of housing for our
Thank you.
generation are higher than they've
Representative
ever
Hansen,
been.
thank you.
And so I'd ask for a
Thank
yes.
you so much for your bill and your comments. Members, we are going to a vote. The clerk will take the roll on House File 1402. I renew the motion that House File 1402 be re-referred to the Committee on State Government Finance. The clerk will take the roll.
Hornstein.
Aye.
Hornstein, aye. Tapke.
Aye.
Tapke, aye. Petersburg.
No.
Petersburg, no. Brand.
Aye.
Brand, aye. Elkins.
Aye.
Elkins, aye. Fogelman.
No.
Fogelman, no. Udella.
No.
Udella, no. Kegel.
Aye.
Kegel, aye. Kraft. Kraft, aye. Murphy.
No.
Murphy, no. Nelson.
Yes.
Nelson, yes. Norris.
Yes.
Norris, yes. Olson.
No.
Olson, no. Sensormira.
Yes.
Sensormira, yes. West.
No.
West, no. Mr. Chair, we have 9 ayes and 6 nays.
There being 9 ayes and 6 nays, the motion prevails. And Representative Hansen, you're on your way to state government.